up guys? So today I'm going to be doing something a bit different. I've been receiving quite a few comments and messages on Instagram asking about how I get my guitar sound, how I make it sound lo-fi and incorporate it within a beat. So I'm going to take you through what I do, how I set up my effects rack and how I mix my guitar to get my sound, usually in a beat. Quick disclaimer, I'm not a full-time musician, I'm not a full-time producer or mixer, and I do not think this is the correct way you should be mixing your tracks or your guitar. This is just simply how I do it and how I make my beats. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you later. Alright guys, so here I have the guitar loop I just created. So the first thing I'm going to do is just fix it up a bit, EQ some of the low end out, EQ some of the high end, add some compression and maybe a guitar amp, so let's check that out. First of all, get an effects rack in the track, and just a standard EQ8 from Ableton. I'm just going to take out this low end, which will eventually cause rumble if I leave it in when it mixes with the bass and the kick. Sounds about right. I'll usually drop some of the guitar low end, and maybe raise just above the 1K. Then I'll add the compressor. I just use the Ableton compressor, to be honest, sounds fine to me. I'll add that into the effects rack and just compress. And actually, I often take the makeup off and just play around with the gain out to get the volume back to normal. So do a quick A/B. So obviously the B is more silent because we're compressing it, so I'll just put the gain up a bit. Nice one. Then I'll add an amp to the chain. So I use Guitar Rig 5 from Native Instruments. Highly recommend it. Really cool app with all these different amps that emulate real amps like Fender and Marshall and Orange. But yeah, I'll go and open up Guitar Rig 5. And within Guitar Rig 5, I'm a really sort of simple user when it comes to all types of plugins. I just go for stuff that sounds good straight off the bat and doesn't sound too complex, to be honest. I go into amplifiers and just pick the jazz amp. Go in there, I'll put the bass up usually, the treble up, and I'll actually turn the mids down, but not too much, it doesn't sound too scooped. One of the cool things about Guitar Rig 5 is that you have this dry air feature, which just makes it sound more valve-like, like you're pushing air, and I really like that, so I usually play around with that quite a bit. Another thing I like to do is turn the volumes down on the amp and on the emulated speaker, and then I'll just use a utility to gain it back up. I'll just A/B it real quick to make sure that I didn't change the overall volume of the track, adding the effects. So at this point I've achieved my sort of basic bread and butter guitar clean sound that I like to use. Alright guys, so before I recorded a guitar, to turn that guitar track into something that sounds like a vinyl sample, I went in and added an upright bass just in the background and a ride cymbal that just adds more movement to the sound. The first thing I'm doing is grouping those instrument tracks into a bus so that I can mix them as if they were a sample rather than separate instruments. So I'll go Ctrl-G that, and I'm going to add another audio effects rack into there. I'll add an EQ again just to take out the low end before I do anything else. I don't mind about knocking too much off the upright bass because I'm gonna probably add my own bass later, and if this were to become a beat, I'd add my own sub bass to give it a hip hop sound, and I don't want the sub bass mixing too much with the upright bass, so I'm just gonna take the low end out without worrying too much about the bass on the sample. Then I'm taking out the high end. So why do I take out the high end? Because I want it to sound like a vintage sample. And for old tape machines, old vinyl players, you didn't have the frequency span that you have today. So low end, high end, taking those out. Now at this point, the more you raise the sort of 800 to 1K region, I feel like it gets even more kind of old tape machine. So I'll just show you what I mean. Gets that sort of nostalgic sound that we usually look for. I like to keep it a bit more open, to be honest, so I'm just going to put that back a bit. So, as guitar players, we all like a lot of reverb, but when it comes to this sort of thing, I like to keep it quite mellow. I have a reverb track with just the Ableton stock reverb. I'm just going to increase the decay time to around 3,200 milliseconds. Have the quality set to high, and a high and a low cut, just pretty standard high low cut. Let's check this out now. First thing I'm adding, RC20 retro cooler. And the first thing I like to add is the wobble, which is maybe my favorite feature within RC20. Obviously this is extreme, I'm going to lower it, but just to give you a flavor of what it sounds like. Another thing that can happen is flutter, which sounds like this. But again, I like to keep this stuff quite mellow, because when it's too strong, I feel like it kind of destroys the vibe a bit. I tend to stick to the wobble, just with a little bit of flutter, but not too much. Sounds quite nice. So the next thing after wobble is I'm distorting the track. I really keep the distortion low on this. I'm just trying to warm up the sample. I don't want it to sound, too hectic on the ears. So I'm just adding a slight bit there. Really just warming up some of the low end of the sample. Next thing I'm doing is adding digital distortion. I don't like to add dust in a track. I like to add dust on the master track of my beat, but I like to add maybe a muff or a tape noise, just a little bit, because I already added a tape noise track in the beat. So I'm just going to add some muff here. And I also like it to follow the guitar. So whenever the guitar is playing, the noise comes in, and that sounds like it's really coming out of the guitar amp as if it was recorded in a session. Nice. So after RC20, I like to EQ again, just because RC20 can add some distorted lows or some digital distortion highs. So I just put EQ in there and take out anything I don't want. then I'm gonna go straight in and add the last effect to the chain, which is a sidechain compression to the kick. Okay, so I got my drums recorded, so let's go ahead and sidechain the sample, just using the stock Ableton compressor for now. Go into sidechain and choose your kick. Drums, kick. I like to use this visual when I'm using the sidechain just because it shows you exactly what the sidechain is doing. So the blue line is the threshold and the yellow line, I believe, is the volume of the track. And you can see that when the kick hits, the volume just ducks completely. So the threshold is the volume at which the compressor kicks in. And the ratio here is how much that track is compressed once the compression kicks in. Alright guys, so that's the basic mix that makes up my guitar sound and my guitar sample sound. Summing it up, what I like to do is record my guitar, make it nice and clean for some EQ compression and a guitar amp plugin, then add a bit more movement to the track, either through an upright bass or maybe some Rhodes chords, and just a very simple percussive track, in this case a ride cymbal. And then I'll mix the sample as a whole for a bus to make it sound like it was sampled off a vinyl record. After that, I'm adding drums, and from there I start to create the beat. So guys, I hope you liked the music in the video, and if you do, let me know in the comments if you want me to make more tutorial style videos on how I program my drums, or record my bass tracks, or how I come up with beat ideas.